Have you ever caught yourself thinking, nobody understands what I'm going through? Or maybe, why am I always the one carrying everything? Or perhaps the big one, why isn't anybody helping me? Well, the truth is, most of us walk through life carrying expectations about other people that reality simply cannot fulfill. We expect people to fully understand us. We expect people to carry our emotional weight. And sometimes we expect people to save us. But what if those expectations are actually creating unnecessary suffering? Well, today we're talking about relationships, responsibilities, emotional awareness, and one of the hardest but most freeing truths that you can learn. People can support you, but nobody can live your life for you. Welcome to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, where we explore the keys to unlocking your full potential and living your best life. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. Whether you're looking to make a breakthrough, overcome a challenge, or simply live with greater clarity, joy, and purpose, you'll find the tools and inspirations you need right here. So let's start your journey towards personal mastery and growth right now. Welcome back to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, your go-to resource for practical tips, insightful research, and inspiring stories to help you unlock your full potential. I'm your host, Jose Johnson, and I am an expert in the fields of mindfulness, mindset, and peak performance. And I am so excited to have you here with me today. Now, in today's episode, well, it's going to be a little more personal and reflective because this topic was inspired by a coaching conversation I had recently, combined with something I had recently listened to on my favorite podcast, besides this one, the Mel Robbins podcast. And the more I sat with these ideas, the more I realized how much unnecessary frustration, resentment, and emotional pain we create because of the expectations that we place on other people. So, today we're going to unpack three powerful mindset shifts that can completely change the way you approach relationships, communication, emotional struggles, and personal responsibility. Now, one of the deepest human desires is the desire to feel understood. We want people to get us. We want them to understand our pain, our frustration, our anxiety, our fears, our stress, and the emotional weight that we're carrying. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that desire. Human beings are social creatures. We're wired for connection. But here's the difficult truth: no one can fully understand your experiences because nobody's you. Now, people can absolutely empathize with you. May have gone through something similar, and they may certainly understand the nature of your struggle, but they cannot experience your situation through your nervous system, your memories, your history, your emotional conditioning, your fears, your personality, and your perspective. Sure, two people can go through the exact same event, but they can experience it completely differently. Right? Just think about siblings raised in the same household, same parents, same house, same environment. And yet one person may describe their childhood as loving and supportive, while another remembers it as stressful and emotionally difficult. Why? Because human beings don't experience reality objectively. We experience reality subjectively. Your brain is constantly filtering experiences through previous memories, emotional association, beliefs, and learned patterns. Now, neuroscience research shows that structures like the amygdala and the hippocampus help shape how emotional experiences are encoded and remembered. So that means that your emotional interpretation of an event becomes deeply personal. So when someone says, I understand exactly what you're going through, well, they probably mean well. But the reality is, they only understand parts of it. They understand the category of the suffering, but they don't understand the exact emotional texture of your experience. And strangely enough, accepting that truth can actually improve your relationships. Because when you stop demanding perfect understanding from people, you become less resentful when they fall short. So instead of saying, why don't they understand me? You begin asking, how can I communicate my experience more clearly? And that is a radically different mindset. because now you're moving from expectation to communication, from resentment to responsibility. And that shift changes everything. Now, this leads us to the second realization. Not only can people not fully understand your experiences, but they're also dealing with struggles of their own. And this is something that I've been reflecting on a lot recently. Sometimes when we're stressed, overwhelmed, frustrated, anxious, angry, or emotionally exhausted, we unconsciously start emotionally dumping on the people around us. Now, let me be very clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with needing support. There's nothing wrong with venting sometimes. There's nothing wrong with having difficult conversations. Healthy emotional expression is very important. But there's a difference between sharing and dumping. Sharing creates connection. Dumping is often emotional discharge without awareness. And I think sometimes that we forget that the people we're unloading onto are also carrying their own invisible burdens. So I want you to imagine that every person you meet is walking around carrying an invisible backpack. Some people are carrying stress from work. Some are carrying grief. Some are carrying financial pressures. Some are carrying trauma. Some are carrying loneliness. Some are carrying anxiety that they never talk about. And yet, many people still wake up every day, smile politely, go back to work, help others, and try to function as best as they can. We truly have no idea what another person may be carrying internally. Now, this is why awareness matters. Because sometimes we walk into a room emotionally throwing bricks around because we're overwhelmed without realizing the other person is already barely holding on themselves. And I think one of the most emotionally mature things that we can learn is this: just because you're hurting does not mean everyone around you has unlimited capacity to absorb your pain. Right? That doesn't mean that you should isolate yourself. It doesn't mean that you should suppress your emotions. It simply means we need emotional awareness and responsibility. Before venting to someone, it can be helpful to pause and ask, am I looking for support or simply unloading? Is this the right person? Is this the right moment? Have I asked whether they even have the emotional space for this conversation? Now, that small moment of mindfulness can completely change the quality of your relationships because emotionally intelligent people don't just express emotions, they become aware of the impact their emotions have on others. And honestly, I think this is especially important in today's world because so many people are already overwhelmed. Stress is high. Mental health struggles, they're high. Burnout, it's high. Financial pressure, it's through the roof. People are exhausted, so kindness matters. Awareness matters. Compassion matters. And sometimes compassion means recognizing that the people around you, well, they're human beings, not emotional dumpsters. All right, now here comes the big one. And this may be the hardest truth in the entire episode. No one is coming to save you. Now, before you get depressed listening to this, let me explain what I mean. I'm not saying people won't help you. People can absolutely support you. They can encourage you. They can guide you, love you, mentor you, open doors for you, teach you, inspire you. And thank goodness for that. Human support matters. Community matters. Relationships matter. But at the end of the day, nobody can do your inner work for you. Nobody can make your decisions for you. Nobody can heal your mindset for you. No one can build your future for you. And this is something I had to learn in my own business. There were times where I found myself frustrated because I didn't feel like certain people were supporting my business enough. Maybe they weren't sharing my content. Maybe they weren't promoting what I was doing. Maybe they weren't showing up in the ways I secretly hoped they would. And eventually I had to confront an uncomfortable truth. That's not their responsibility. It's mine. Now, if people support me, that is fantastic. I've had some amazing people help me along my way. So, for example, my friend Keith, he's helped connect me with a lot of business opportunities. And my friend and student Carol has been my biggest cheerleader and supporter over the years. And there's so many others that have encouraged me, referred me, and supported my work. And I am deeply grateful for that. But I cannot build my life around the expectation that other people are supposed to carry my dream for me because that creates resentment. And resentment usually grows wherever responsibility is avoided. Now, that realization changed my perspective because instead of sitting around frustrated about what people weren't doing, I needed to shift my focus toward what I could do. And that's empowerment. And honestly, this applies to every area of your life. Your trainer, they can guide you, but they can't do your push ups for you. Your therapist, well, they can help you process your emotions, but they can't live your healing journey for you. And your coach, they can teach you principles, but they can't apply them for you. Because at some point, growth becomes a personal decision. And while that truth can feel heavy at first, it's also incredibly liberating. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you reclaim your power. All right, so what's interesting is that all three of these ideas point towards the same deeper truth. A lot of suffering comes from resisting reality. We suffer because we expect people to fully understand us. We suffer because we expect others to carry emotional weight they may not be able to carry. We suffer because we secretly expect someone else to fix our lives. And when reality doesn't match those expectations, well, we become frustrated, disappointed, resentful, or emotionally stuck. But acceptance changes things. Now, acceptance does not mean passivity. It doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean lowering your standards. Acceptance simply means seeing reality clearly instead of fighting against what's true. And one of the most powerful mindset shifts that you can develop is this: appreciate support from others without depending on it for your survival. That's emotional maturity. That's resilience. That's empowerment. And ironically, when you stop demanding unrealistic things from people, your relationships often improve dramatically because now people feel appreciated instead of pressured. They feel connected instead of responsible for fixing you. And you become stronger because your emotional stability is no longer completely dependent on external validation or rescue. Hey there, feeling stuck? Spinning your wheels? Are you ready for a breakthrough? Well, then you need to hear this because I've got something that will supercharge your growth this year, and it's called the Mindset Makeover. Now, it's my new book and course that are designed to help you upgrade the mental software that drives your success. And inside, you're going to discover the mindsets that shape every decision, every habit, and every result. And you'll learn the science-backed tools to rewire your thinking for clarity, confidence, and unstoppable momentum. So whether you're aiming higher, trying to break free from old patterns, or finally stepping into that version of yourself that you know that you're capable of becoming, well, this is your launch pad. So don't wait. Head over to josejohnson.com/mindset to grab the book, join the course, or get both together. Again, that's josejohnson.com/mindset. And remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. And with the Mindset Makeover, you can make it something extraordinary. All right, so let's make this practical because insight without application is just intellectual entertainment. So you can listen to a powerful podcast like this one, read a great book, watch an inspiring video, nod your head the entire time, and still never change your life. Real growth happens when awareness becomes action. So, here are three powerful mindset shifts and practical exercises that you can begin applying immediately to create healthy relationships, stronger emotional resilience, and greater personal responsibility. So, we'll start with replace mind reading with clear communication. And see, one of the biggest relationship traps people fall into is expecting others to automatically know what they need. We assume if they care, they know. If they loved me, they'd understand. I shouldn't have to explain myself. But the reality is this: human beings are not mind readers. And honestly, most people are so busy managing their own lives internally that they often miss subtle emotional cues completely. Now, this is especially true under stress. Research in cognitive psychology shows that stress narrows our attention and reduces emotional awareness. So, in other words, overwhelmed people often become less perceptive, not because they don't care, but because their mental bandwidth is overloaded. So, instead of assuming people should just know, practice intentional communication. So, for example, instead of you never support me, you might say to someone, I've been feeling overwhelmed lately, and I think I need a little more encouragement and check ins right now. Now, notice the difference? One creates defensiveness, the other creates clarity. One attacks, the other invites connection. And honestly, this is something I think many of us need to practice more often because unclear expectations are one of the fastest ways to create resentment. Next, we can practice the pause before you vent. Now, let's talk about emotional dumping. Again, there's nothing wrong with needing support, but emotionally mature people learn how to pause before projecting emotional overwhelm onto everyone around them. So, one practice that can help tremendously is what I call the compassion pause. Before unloading emotionally onto someone, pause for 10 to 15 seconds and ask yourself, what am I actually needing right now? Am I seeking support, solutions, validations, or simply emotional release? Does this person currently have the emotional capacity for this conversation? Have I asked for permission to unload emotionally? And that last one is very powerful. Sometimes simply saying, hey, do you have the emotional bandwidth for me to vent for a few minutes shows tremendous respect for another person's humanity. And what's interesting is that when people feel respected emotionally, they often become more willing to support you. Now, this also helps us to become more emotionally self aware because sometimes what we truly need is not another conversation. Sometimes we just need sleep or silence. Sometimes we need movement. Sometimes we just need to breathe. And sometimes we need to process our emotions before speaking. Not every emotional reaction needs immediate expression. And that's an important skill to develop because emotional intelligence is not the absence of emotion, it's learning how to respond to emotions wisely. Number three is to shift from waiting to ownership. Now, this third practice may be the most transformative. Ask yourself, where in my life am I waiting for someone else to change something that I actually need to take responsibility for? Now, that question can hit hard. Maybe you're waiting for someone to motivate you, someone to validate you, someone to discover your talent, someone to fix your relationship, someone to make your business successful, or someone to finally give you permission to become who you already know you could be. But here's the reality: most meaningful change begins when you stop waiting. Now, I've experienced this personally in my own creative work. As a professional musician, composer, arranger, speaker, and content creator, there have absolutely been moments where I felt stuck creatively, especially when deadlines were involved. You know, sit there waiting for inspiration, waiting for clarity, waiting for motivation, waiting for the perfect moment. And meanwhile, nothing happens. You know, I've had moments when I've been writing books or creating podcast episodes or building a keynote presentation or developing courses where my brain felt frozen. And what I've learned over time is this: momentum comes after action, not before it. You don't wait until you feel inspired to begin. You begin, and inspiration catches up later. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply take one small step. Write one paragraph, make one phone call, record one rough draft, send one email, take one walk, or just have one honest conversation. Tiny actions break inertia. And once inertia breaks, momentum begins building. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. Now, that principle applies emotionally, professionally, creatively, and relationally because no one can walk your path for you, but you absolutely have the power to take the next step. And if you honestly need help, ask. Don't assume people will offer unsolicited help. And remember that the best way to receive help from others sometimes is to be willing to offer help to others. Be a giver, not just a taker. Look, at the end of the day, people may never fully understand your experiences. People around you are carrying struggles that you cannot see, and nobody is coming to save you. But strangely enough, those truths are not depressing. They're freeing because they push us towards clearer communication, greater compassion, and deeper personal responsibility. And when you combine those three things together, you become emotionally stronger, mentally healthier, and relationally wiser. So this week, I want you to practice one simple shift. Instead of asking, why aren't people doing more for me? Ask, what can I do to move forward today? Now, that single question can completely change your mindset and your life. All right, so if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with someone who may need to hear it. And as always, please subscribe, follow, and leave a review because it really helps us continue reaching more people with these conversations. Until next time, remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Thanks for tuning in. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or treatment. While the content of this podcast is based on research and personal experience, everyone's situation is unique, and the advice given may not be applicable to all. Always consult a qualified professional before making significant changes in your life. The Personal Mastery and Growth podcast is recorded at the So Good Media Studios located in the Candy Factory, a co-working space in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.